Next up, we're summoning awesome forces at the utterance of a single word.
That's right, it's time for a Rick and Rick review of Shazam!
With all the action and adventure.
All the hijinks and hilarity.
Plus a host of holy molies, bullet immunities, all 7 deadly sins, and the chance to put our hands on the wizard's staff. Wait a second, that doesn't sound right.
And it all starts right here, right now.
The one show where everybody's name is Rick.
And everybody rules the world.
Hello, happy Shazam Day, Shazam weekend, opening weekend. This is the first time that we have ever seen a movie at the same time and then doing our show on the same day. So this is like a milestone here, folks. After 1.5 seasons, we're getting our act together.
You know, and I think we very seldomly actually do the movie review on the weekend that the movie comes out. Usually it's a week or so later.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal for us here.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. This is Rick Matheson, and I am joined, as always, by my good friend, Rick Wooten. And yeah, we are going to be talking about that other Captain Marvel movie, the one that opened this weekend, by the name of Shazam. And we even have loaded questions, the Shazam edition today. So it should be fun. Okay, so we saw the movie and we tried not to talk about it too much afterward, but what were your overall impressions from the movie?
You know, I gotta say, you know, my attitude going in wasn't great, right? We kind of joked about this, but you know, it just, you know, from the commercials that I saw, it just felt like it was going to be too much of a ripoff of Big plus Superman or something like that, and it was going to be just a little too campy. I gotta say the commercials didn't do it justice, and it was better than what I expected going in, and very much in a good way. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I thought the actors did a pretty good job. I felt the story had a nice pace to it. It was believable. Well, I mean, as much as, you know, one could believe a superhero flying around. But anyways, I really enjoyed it. How about yourself?
Yeah, I did. That was actually my second time watching it, folks. Really enjoyed it. I knew I had to see it again, and I'm glad I did, because there were a number of Easter eggs that I completely missed the first time I watched it that I picked up on this time. This movie follows Billy Batson, who is chosen by the wizard Shazam to carry on the good fight against evil, against, I guess, the 7 deadly sins who have been put loose into the world. And to do that, he grants Billy Batson the ability to say the word Shazam and become what used to be known as the original Captain Marvel. Billy, he is an orphan. He is between foster homes, and he's in this continuous search for his mother, who he believes in his mind's eye that he got separated from at a Christmas carnival and was lost and could never find her again. And he's spending his time trying to locate his mother 10 years later. You know, he's a good kid at heart, but he's a 14-year-old boy. He gets accepted into this foster home with, I guess, 6 other kids, great parents, and Billy rejects it. He doesn't want that, you know, and he's in search for his real family. And he becomes this Captain Marvel character, or Shazam, and he works with his foster brother, Freddy Freeman. He's a superhero freak and knows everything about superpowers and supervillains or whatnot, and he tries to help Billy figure out what the hell has happened and what his superpowers are. And that's really the biggest fun of the movie, is the discovery of what powers he has. My favorite scene is when they're trying to document his powers. He tries to fly, and he can fly a little bit, and he tries these things, but then they're in his little mini mart, and it's being held up by gunmen, and the gunmen shoot Billy, and the bullets shoot off him, and Freddy from it's like, oh, you got bullet immunity, so cool, shoot him again. He even hands the gun back to the bad guy, and he's like, wait, we don't know if it's the suit that's superpowered or not. Shoot him in the face. And Billy's reaction like, wait, what? And then fortunately it doesn't hurt him. Now in the comics, Rick, Billy was chosen because he was the pure of heart. And the movie made it sound like, well, you're what I got, kid. I'm out of time, so you're gonna have to take on my powers. Did you get that impression too?
I did. And I was going to ask you about this. So after we saw the movie and I was driving back, I was listening to a couple of YouTube videos, and one of them was talking about how largely what we saw in the Shazam movie was from kind of the reboot that DC did, you know, what do they call them, the 52 comics, or
yes,
you know,
the new 52.
Yeah, and so the, you know, the characters are more closely aligned to that, but even then it didn't seem like it was as quite as much of a compromise, because the magician definitely came across as saying, look, you know, I you're who I have, I'm gonna bet on you, don't let me down, versus, you know, you're pure at heart.
That cracked me up. This show, I don't know, we were talking about this too, it mixes high comedy with real heartfelt heartfelt emotion. When Billy finally finds his mother, I
Yeah.
should have said spoiler alerts here, folks, but when he finally finds his mother, he realizes she didn't want him. She was too young. And when he got lost in a crowd, she made sure that he was with police, but then figured they can do a better job of raising him than I can. You just felt for the kid. And the kid is great as Billy Batson, although the weakness in it is that I couldn't always tell that Captain Marvel or Shazam, the superhero, was that kid, because Zachary Levi and Asher Angel, they should have given the character a certain tick that both of them could do in the movie to help cue that it's the same person, because as Captain Marvel, Zachary Levi is much more goofy than the kid allows himself to be in his 14-year-old self. There was a disconnect, and in fact, I swear the little kid's voice was deeper than Zachary Levi's. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. In fact, when they all became Shazam kids or whatever, I didn't feel like the casting was always exactly spot on. I had better luck the second time watching to figure out who was whom. It actually was quite obvious, but the first time I watched it, I was like, wait, so which kid is that? And the scene
that was actually the reaction I had. As I was going through, I was trying to figure out which kid was which, and I read a piece on this, and apparently the clothes they wore before they turned into the Shazam family matched the clothes they had afterwards. But that was a little subtle for me for some of the characters. You were talking about range a minute ago, and one of the criticisms I've made of DC, particularly with the Batman and Superman characters, has been their lack of emotional range. And I would expect more anger, I'd expect more frustration, I'd expect more just something, and they come across as really flat. And I would say that this movie went the other direction in a very good way. And huge kudos to them for taking the risk here, because there were times where it was just silly and kind of funny, and I laughed. And then literally wanted to shed a tear when his mom rejected him. And so they definitely had great emotional range in the movie, and the actors, like you said, played off really well against each other. The biggest challenge I had, and you just touched on this, was the character Shazam versus the kid, right? The adult version and the kid version. And I to your point, maybe it was a tick, maybe it was something, but the personalities were so dramatically different, and they didn't seem to quite align for me. That was probably, if I'm going to critique, that was probably the one thing that I think they just could have done better with. And to a certain extent, the kid character seemed more mature than the adult character.
Yes.
And it just wasn't totally believable.
I thought Zachary Levi was fantastic in this role, other than I wish he and Asher Angel had spent more time together figuring out what's Billy Batson like that's going to be consistent to his young self and his older self. Whereas Jack Dylan Grazer, who played Freddie Freeman, that kid was acting circles around pretty much everybody. Big source of comedy in the movie, but also poignancy there. He gets bullied by kids at school, and the moment where Billy / Shazam says, you're just jealous, you just wish this was happening to you, and the kid turns around and says, you better damn well believe I wish it was me. And he had that moment where he was talking about how invisible he always felt, and I thought that was a really strong moment in the movie as well. Everyone got a moment to shine.
Yeah, but that he had more moments than probably anyone else in the movie. His acting was so amazing, and even to the point where he's making dark jokes, right? He asked the question, why so dark? You're a disabled foster kid, you've got it all. To me, there's so many layers to that, because on one level it could be kind of mocking the Dark Knight. On the other level, it could be mocking Deadpool, where Deadpool was saying, oh, this is so dark, it could be a DC Comics movie, right? It was and it was timed so well. Just over and over again, that kid played just an amazing character.
And the extended family, I thought the parents were really strong for the moments that they had in the movie. Yeah. You felt like this was a married couple, and they explained that they had, grew up in the foster network or whatever, and wanted to provide a really solid home. And Mary, their oldest child, she is a very hardworking student, and she gets accepted to college. And there's a moment in the movie where here Billy doesn't want anything to do with this family, and she's upset because she doesn't want to leave her family to go to college. And so there's so many nice things, and he couldn't believe it. And he was like, look after yourself, go take care of yourself. And that was part of his journey before he realized, oh, right, exactly. I'm a dummy. These people are great, and I want to be part of this family. And what was great is the movie let itself breathe in a way that a lot of movies don't anymore. If this had been made, in the early 80s, you'd believe it because there was a beginning, an end. There was a dramatic moment, the lesson learned from the character and his redemption, and that final scene where that was a tick for the family. The whole thing with the hand in the middle, before saying grace, and him resisting that all through the movie, and then finally being the one like, hey, hands in, saying grace. It was just a great moment. Great family film. Lots of violence.
Well,
Actually,
I was going to say
gross violence.
I was gonna say I'm not sure it's totally a family film. And that was the thing. The movie was a dichotomy because on one hand it was a little silly, right? I mean, they even not only did they appreciate that the movie looked a little bit like a Superman plus Big, they literally captured one of the scenes from Big in the movie, right? The running across the piano with the hero and the supervillain. That was a great way to kind of laugh at yourself and move forward. I thought when I saw that scene, I think you probably heard me. I literally laughed. I thought that was clever. But they had very dark moments, right? I mean, somebody gets thrown out a window to their death. Another person gets their head bitten off. And so, I mean, it was pretty dark, but at the same time, the humor. So I don't know that it's a family movie, but it certainly, had some family themes to it and was humorous.
Yeah. Well, going back to that thought of it being from the 1980s, remember back then they would have shown that it would have been about the level of violence and they wouldn't have thought twice about it. It's just
That's fair.
forward all this time we're horrified by I was like, what the hell did they just show? I did read The Rock was one of the producers, and I did read this afternoon that apparently they had started with the idea that The Rock would play Black Adam, who is Captain Marvel's ultimate bad guy. And there's a moment early on when the wizard Shazam is explaining what's going on, where you see this one who went bad, who got the powers of Shazam, but then used it for evil, and that's Black Adam. But apparently they have decided to separate that into two movies, and that there will be a Black Adam movie and then a fight movie between the two of them. So each is bringing a full backstory to whatever battle ensues between them. I think that could be very cool.
I agree. Hey, so was Captain Marvel kind of Shazam basically geared more towards kids? I was looking at the names of some of the villains, like Arson Fiend and Mr. Atom and Mr. Banjo and Mr. Mind and Mr. Who. It was Captain Nazi. And so I was just like, the dummy.
Yeah, you have to remember in 39, on to mid 40s even, comic books were not considered a child's medium. They were just magazines. And Superman and Batman were for any age. In fact, they started to get in trouble for that. By the 1950s, they had to change it to make them more kid-friendly. But Captain Marvel / Shazam started very much geared toward kids and weird, too. I mean, like we talked about, Mr. Tawney was a character. There's a theme in this movie with tigers all over the place. He throws a stuffed tiger at the villain at one point, but in the comics there was this character who was a talking tiger kind of mentor, and I have a feeling we'll see him at some point. They definitely alluded to him throughout the movie. It's a funky ass kind of universe that they build for these characters.
And then the other thing that they did really well in this movie that I hadn't seen DC do in the past was their Easter eggs. They had Easter eggs everywhere. I mean, I was actually just thinking about the backpack, right? So one of the backpacks had a tiger on it. The tiger was in the where they fought in the amusement park, and as you mentioned, that's tied back to the
Tawney
Tiger. And it's great how many of these. Which ones did you catch?
One was the actor who played Dr. Savannah's father, who was just an ass to the boy growing up, was played by John Grover, was it? Who played Lionel Luthor in Smallville. And in Smallville, Lex Luthor is a bald man, and his final confrontation with his father, Lionel, he throws Lionel out of a skyscraper window. And so there was this whole scene that was very similar to that.
One of the ones I thought was really cool, and I didn't pick up on this until I read about it online, is the opening scene is staged in 1974, right? It's kind of a flashback sort of thing. And it's where Dr. Thaddeus, was it Savannah,
yeah.
went before the wizard to find out whether or not he could be the champion. And anyways, blah, blah, blah. 1974 was the date that the TV show Shazam launched.
Yeah.
And so there was a nice little kind of callback to that, a little hidden Easter egg in that. I thought that was really cool. The other one that was interesting was some of the names that they kind of ran through as they were trying to figure out Shazam's what his name was going to be. And one of them was Power Boy. And if I remember right, there was a character called Power Boy sometime, in the 2000s. What was the other one? We were talking about this at lunch.
Well, you mentioned or caught that the director was the director of one of the Annabelle movies, and the Annabelle doll was in the movie?
Yeah, so the Annabelle doll was, I spotted it, although I didn't get the reference at the moment. It was in the shop, where in the opening scene where he's broken into the shop to call the police so that he can get in their car and use their computer. Sitting in the shop was one of the doll from Annabelle.
Well, I take it that the batarang that Freddie Freeman had was literally Batman's batarang. There was a bullet that bounced off Superman at some point, but there was a Time magazine on Freddie Freeman's shelf.
Right.
That was from Time magazine's coverage of all the events that were chronicled in Man of Steel. Just one of the Kryptonian ships, world makers or whatever, floating above a city, and it had Activore or something like that on it. You pointed out the crocodile people. What was that all about?
Yeah, essentially there was the scene where they were running from the villain, and they came to a room with a whole bunch of doors. They started throwing open doors and finding just random things in each one. And one of them, when they threw open the door, was 3 crocodiles sitting around a table playing poker. At first, I thought this was kind of a nod to, the dogs playing poker kind of thing, and just kind of a fun way. But the more I read about it, it turns out those crocodiles were a nemesis of Shazam, and he fought them. In fact, I think they crossed over into other ones as well, including Batman and Superman. One of the other Easter eggs that I picked up on was there was early on, when he had just discovered his powers, Billy Batson and his sidekick went and they were testing all these different things, whether or not he could fly, whether or not he could be hit with the 2x4, whatever. And in the background was a sign that said Ace Chemicals. And for those playing along at home, Ace Chemicals was actually the place where Joker fell into the vat of whatever it was and turned into the Joker. But there was a ton of these, Fawcett Central High School, right? Which is throwback to the original comic company that created Shazam.
Yeah, there was all that, and then the father's name, the adoptive father, whatever, foster father, his name is CC something, and one of the creators of Shazam was CC Beck.
So tell me a little bit about the end scenes. You're more familiar with these than I am.
So there is a mid-credit stinger where we revisit Dr. Savannah. He is in jail, and he's going crazy in his cell. And then he hears a voice laughing at him, and it's kind of a metallic voice. And he turns around and sees this green talking worm. And that character was a villain called Mr. Mind in the comics. And he tells Savannah, we're going to have a lot of fun together. So it was really cool to see that character.
Do you remember when Billy Batson went to go, when he finally found his real mom, and he went to go talk to her, you could hear somebody, a boyfriend presumably, yelling at her in the background. Do you remember that scene?
Yep.
Do you know who that was doing the boyfriend's voice? It was the director. It was Sandberg. And so that was his cameo in the show, was being the, quasi abusive voice of the boyfriend in the background.
Wow. One of my favorite moments in the movie was after he comes out of that and he learns that his foster family is in trouble, when he goes to the rooftop, just quintessential Superman scene. But I loved how young Billy jumps off the building as he's saying Shazam, and the lightning strikes him, and then he takes off to save the day. That was one of my favorite visual moments. And oddly, the lighting in it actually evoked, if you go back to the covers of Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, with the lightning strike and everything, that almost definitely evoked that. Folks, we do need to take a break, and when we come back, it is time for Loaded Questions, the Shazam edition, so stay tuned. All right, Rick and Rick Nation, we are back with our review of Shazam. Now, I think I saw today that Shazam has had a $53 million opening weekend. I think that was according to Entertainment Weekly. And I think I mentioned to you, Rick, this movie does not have to make much. I think they figured out that they would have to only make as much as Marvel's Captain Marvel made its opening weekend for it to be a monster hit for WB, because they spent so little on this movie. So, Rick, are you ready for some loaded questions?
As ready as I can be.
All right. Question number 1. Henry Cavill was in talks to appear as Superman for a key cameo in the film that we just talked about, but couldn't because of A, the cost of erasing his mustache, B, the cost of padding his wallet, C, the cost of pretending Batman vs. Superman never happened, or D, his shooting schedule for a cameo in Brightburn. Which of these was the reason he couldn't appear?
It's B. It's because they couldn't fill his wallet up enough.
Well, I think that's probably right. But according to IMDb, Henry Cavill was in talks to appear as Superman for the cameo, but couldn't due to scheduling conflicts with Mission Impossible Fallout, for which he was contractually forbidden from shaving off that ridiculous mustache, much to the chagrin of the special effects team on Justice League, who had to erase it out, or attempt to erase it out of the final film. So technically, I'm cheating a little bit because it wasn't literally about the mustache. It was about the movie that the mustache made him have.
Got it.
Question number 2. For longtime fans of the comic, nicknames for the Shazam character include the real Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, and one of the following. A, Topo the Bongo playing octopus. B, the Big Red Cheese Ball. C, the Big Red Cheese. Or D, the Big Red Lightning Bolt. Which of these was a common nickname among fans for this character?
Oh, what was C again? The Big Red...
So Big Red Cheese is C. So it's Topo, the Big Red Cheese Ball, the Big Red Cheese, or the Big Red Lightning Bolt.
I'm going to go with the Big Red Cheese, and I think I'm going to be wrong.
No, you are absolutely right. So the answer is C. Yes.
I think they literally made reference to that in the movie.
According to TV tropes and my own memory, fans of the comic often referred to Captain Marvel or Shazam as the Big Red Cheese, though Captain Sparklefingers is sure to sweep the nation. Question number 3. In addition to this past month having 2 films featuring Captain Marvel, what else do Shazam and Captain Marvel share in common? A, the wizard Shazam appears in both films. B, Freddy Freeman appears in both films. C, the Tesseract is seen in both films. Or D, Freddy Freeman has a Captain Marvel comic book on his bookshelf. In addition to this past month having 2 films featuring Captain Marvel, what else do Shazam and Captain Marvel share in common?
I don't remember Freddy being in both, and I don't remember the Tesseract being in there, so I'm at a loss on this one. I'm gonna have to guess. Let's go with Tesseract, even though I know that's not right.
Okay, so close. So no, the answer is A. So get this. The wizard Shazam does appear in both films, or at least the actor, Damon Hanso. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Forgive me for saying that wrong. But Damon Hanso plays the wizard Shazam in Shazam and Korath the Pursuer, a role he first appears in Guardians of the Galaxy and again in Captain Marvel. And get this, Hansu also played the Fisherman King in Aquaman. So here he's been in Captain Marvel, Shazam, and Aquaman. Dude's getting plenty of work.
That's awesome.
Question number 4. According to IMDb, early in development, the film was titled which of the following? So the original title for Shazam was which of the following? A, Big 2, Electric Boogaloo. B, Billy Batson and the Wizard Shazam. C, Billy Batson and the Legend of Shazam. Or D, Say My Name, The Legend of Shazam. Which of these was the early title, the working title for the film?
I think it's C, the one with the Legend of Shazam.
You are correct. Early in development, the film was titled Billy Batson and the Legend of Shazam.
Wow.
All right, so last question here. Together with Mr. Mind, Dr. Sivana formed which group of supervillains in the comics? A, the Legion of Doom. B, the Brotherhood of Evil. C, the Brotherhood of Monsters. Or D, the Monster Society of Evil. Which villain group did Mr. Mind and Dr. Sivana form?
D, the Monster Society of Evil.
You are correct. According to Useless Daily, Dr. Savannah and Mr. Mind formed the Monster Society of Evil. I think you got all these questions right this time. Is that correct?
I missed one. I got 4 out of 5.
Oh, and that was kind of my trick question about the mustache. So that's probably your best score yet.
Mustache me a question.
A real one next time instead of trying to pull tricks on you. So awesome. Final thoughts on Shazam. What grade would you give Shazam?
You know, I going into it, I was all about a C. I was thinking, it's probably going to be a little fun, but at the same time, it's going to be a little cringy. walking out, it was a solid B. I would definitely give this a B. I'd recommend people see it. Don't take it too serious, just enjoy it. Now, you had pretty high hopes. Where did you land for this?
I fell in the B to B minus range, and it delivered on the things that I wanted it to. But for me, part of this, I love Zachary Levi, and I loved him in Chuck, I love him in this. But for some reason, I couldn't always tell that Captain Marvel or Shazam, the superhero, was that kid. Because as Captain Marvel, Zachary Levi is much more goofy than the kid. I wanted that part of his goofiness to be toned down just a little bit. So it fell into a B to B minus. And I guess to be fair to it too, is it's mainly in comparison to Wonder Woman or Aquaman. I felt like those were better movies. I think this is a great one. Like you, I would say go see this, folks. It's fun. Bring your certain age kids, PG-13 or something, kids.
Exactly.
Because it is a throwback, just as it should be. I'm so glad they made it a throwback. So a lot of fun. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thank you, Rick Wooten. That was a great review. It was fun to watch Shazam with you. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in for this episode. And be sure to come back for the one show where everybody's name is Rick and everybody rules the world.
Thanks so much, everyone.